The civilized world creates shadows, and it creates an awfully big shadow, a huge one, that is sort of hanging over our world at the moment. The picture you are looking at epitomizes the ancient world and the modern world. The ancient world in terms of a time when trees were a prominent feature, and modern times in the sense of buildings, you can't see the landscape, and also the way those civilised buildings produce shadows. Somebody said to me on a post on social media that they wondered whether the virus we are going through at the moment is sort of initiated by the spirit of earth or by some natural powers that be. It was an interesting question, and it's given me a lot of thought, because I myself see, well, the picture I've shown you says it all, that there is a dark shadow hanging over the earth. And this is no way an airy-fairy idea. This is how people would have seen it a long time ago. If you understand the language of shadows, what it means to say that something is a shadow, then you might understand what I mean by saying this. The civilised world creates shadows, and it creates an awfully big shadow, a huge one, that is sort of hanging over our world at the moment. And it's doing that because of the artificial way that we relate to the natural world. We are forced to do this in a civilised setting, and no matter how much we try to get back to an ancient way of thinking, in terms of getting back to the wild, or rewilding, or doing all those things that mean that we are reconnecting with something ancient. No matter how eco we try to be, we are still living in this civilised society, and we have to be victims of it. So yeah, there's that to start with. And also I do see narcissism just spreading everywhere, and it's just gathering pace. And I think this self-centeredness that people today have developed is somewhat tiresome, to say the least. Self-centeredness or narcissism creates an obsession with the self, which leads to problems in relationships and social settings. But I don't really know how we're going to cure that. I don't know how we're going to solve that problem. Narcissism is like wildfire. It just runs out of control, and it happens as a result of people believing that they can acquire whatever they desire. And we're brought up like that these days, and we've developed our society in such a way that everything is available, and that seems to be the sole target. Let's make everything available to everyone. If you want it, go and get it. That's the general idea. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but the narcissistic shadow, if you like. I almost perceive this in ancient terms because I see it like some shadow that's caused by civilization spreading over the whole world and sort of magically affecting people and sort of getting into their souls. And in the end, they're all doing the same thing. You could look at this scientifically, psychologically, spiritually, whatever way you would like to look at it. We're talking about the same thing all the time. We're talking about society going on a dive, society going downhill and becoming a victim of narcissism in the worst possible way. So there is this huge shadow hanging over the world, and you can look back through aeons of time and see, only quite recently in some respects, and see how it's grown. Since we made technology available, we can now, at our fingertips, have anything we want. If we want to know anything, we just Google it, and there it is, just literally about anything. And while that is a good thing, it's encouraging us to become experts at literally everything. If I want to learn something, I just Google it. I don't have to go to a teacher. I don't have to make arrangements to do something so I get qualified. I can just Google it and hey presto, there it is. It's this kind of attitude that is serving our needs, especially at the moment when we have to socially distance ourselves and remain isolated, etc. It's serving our needs, but it's also enhancing narcissistic ideas, and it's therefore crushing our intentions to make good in the world. I don't think we can if we're all at the mercy of this narcissistic shadow that hangs over our world. So we have this big narcissistic shadow looking over the world, and then we have all the little narcissists running around being answerable to that shadow. And the virus, as it is at the moment, is, well, I think as positive as we might be about it, we're still living with that threat of that self-centeredness that is stealing over our world. That we've got to knuckle down and understand finally what life is about. What is it about? It's not way beyond you. Life isn't way beyond you. If you look at the tree of life, you will see how the tree grows, how it dies in autumn, and how it grows again in the next springtime. We seem to believe that we've got to grow and develop all the time, our whole lives through. So when we talk about death, as we're doing quite a bit at the moment with this virus, we find it very threatening. So am I suggesting that narcissism is a cause of COVID-19? A big question. I sincerely believe that it plays a part because it creates a whole different construct when we're living according to civilised rules. They are vastly different from rules that are created by tribal folk who live in a very ancient way and who live according to the rules of the natural world. I'm suggesting that the way we are when we civilise ourselves means that we create laws that focus on the self, the human self, rather than the natural world. Humans become primary and the natural world becomes secondary. And that creates a construct for living so that we put ourselves at the centre of everything. That creates or helps to create a narcissistic attitude. In other words, an attitude, a way of behaving and living and being that puts the human self at the centre of all things. As soon as we do that, we shift the balance from the natural world to the human world. And if the human world creates laws that have no basis, no foundation, that's rooted in the natural world, then quite frankly, we're asking for trouble. And when we get to suffering a virus such as we've got now, we tend to think that we shouldn't have to suffer it because we are living in a very sophisticated, civilised world. But we're still living according to human laws and not according to natural laws. So that question, is narcissism a factor in the creation of the coronavirus? I leave that to you to answer yourself. If we can see this time as a time to reflect and as a time to really get down to understanding what life is about, then we've probably done a good thing. We've got to do this now. Those of us who do it anyway, we're sucked into this as much as the people who don't do it. So if you find it very challenging to be isolated and to be kept away from the shops and kept away from all the civilised things you normally get involved with, start to realise how involved you are and how that has happened. Death is only a threat when we don't take it into life. If this doesn't teach us about accepting death, I don't know what will. So there are all these things attached to the shadow. They're not attached to the tree of life, they're attached to the shadow. And we want the good side of the other world, not the side that keeps pumping out shadows for us that we have to try and deal with. So, take care as always, and I'll see you again soon.